Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are making the fundamental tote. This is a pattern by Joleelee Creations and I'm so excited for you guys to make it. This video is going to be the extended video for this pattern. I will link the shorter video in the description below if you need something to quick reference back, but this one's going to be a little real time. Not anything sped up, not anything too fast, just kind of hang out, sew along with me, and if you need a little bit extra guidance, I'll be here for that. So let's get started. Let's go over the pieces that we need for this pattern. You will need 2 straps. I have made these out of vinyl, a slip pocket accent, our slip pocket, our zipper pocket lining, a zipper overlay, zipper tape, and a number 5 zipper. We need our strap connectors and brackets. If you're not doing interfacing on the exterior, we do need 4 interfacing pieces that we can add to the back to prevent things from pulling through. If you'd like to add a nameplate, we also need a nameplate. For hidden D-ring connectors, I recommend using a 1.5 inch by 4 inch piece for each connector with a 3/4 inch D-ring. We have our 2 lining panels and we have 2 exterior panels. My cotton exterior pieces I interfaced with a firm woven interfacing. This one that I use today is the Wizardry and Stitchery Cotton Firm. For the pockets in the lining, the zipper pocket lining and the slip pocket, I interfaced with a lightweight woven, so an SF101 equivalent. This one is the Geeky Fuse Cotton Soft. And for the exterior, I didn't add any interfacing. If you'd like to add interfacing to your exterior, the easiest way is to flip over your main body panel, wrong side up, grab your ruler, and draw the seam allowance onto the back side. So we're going to do 3/8 on the sides and the bottom. And 1 inch down from the top. Now we can take our interfacing and we can line it up with the lines that we just drew, and that will keep everything out of the seam allowance. If you have a wrinkle from it being folded on the bolt, you can put the iron lightly over the top or hold it up to the top of your heat press to get the glue a little bit tacky. That way, once you put it on your main body, it will be lined up nice and straight and won't have that wrinkle on the body. And don't forget, if you're using Decaville Light, to let it sit for a few hours or even overnight if you can, to really let that glue adhere to your piece. The first few pages of this pattern has a lot of prep work, but I think it's really important to go ahead and get that out of the way at the beginning, and then we're not having to track back out all of our supplies here and there at every step, just when you put everything away, or if you prep one day and then you want to sew the next day, you know, everything's already ready for you to go. So I do want to start by clipping the centers of my lining and my main body panel. It'll just help give me a little guide to make sure I know where everything is. And you don't have to clip the centers. You could use a removable pencil, chalk pencil, anything like that. But snipping the triangle gives a nice little point in the fabric where I'm able to line up my ruler really well and not have to worry about the thickness of a marking pen. And it just works really well for me. So I'm just lining up the bottom raw edge and those boxed corners. set the main body to the side and we'll start working with the lining. The measurements are all in the beginning of the pattern for you and the quick reference guide at the end. So go ahead and reference that for all of your line markings. And I want to label them on the back so I know which one is my zipper side and which one is my slip pocket side. So again, I'm just using my ruler to line up the top edge with the line that I need all the way across the top, and that's how I can make sure it's straight with my angled sides. And I just use a regular ballpoint pen to mark on the back sides. So now I have my slip pocket side and my zipper side. I can set those over there. On the main body exteriors, I'm going to be working on the back side. And I like working on the back side just in case there's any errors. You don't have to worry about removing marks from the front side. So again, all these marks are in your pattern or on your quick reference guide on the back. And so I'm just lining up my ruler to that center of the clip mark that we made. And then that way I can draw a nice center line right down the middle. Then if I use everything that I line that up to, will be straight. So there is one, and then this one I need to do, and I also need to make a mark for my nameplate. So if you have a front or a back side, just a front panel that you would rather be more visible on the front for your name tag, then go ahead and put your name tag on that side. Because I didn't use any interfacing on the exterior, I do want to add a little bit of interfacing the areas where I'm going to put my brackets for my strap connectors. It'll just keep everything from pulling through or the vinyl stretching where those connectors are going to go. So I've just cut a couple little strips. And this is the Therafuse from Fabric Therapy, and it's peel and stick, and I just feel like it really holds the fabric from stretching versus using like a Decaville Heavy. Because of the glue, sometimes if you fuse that Decaville Heavy, you can see the imprints on the other side. So we want to grab a craft knife and our marking pen and the brackets that come with these kits. We're going to line up the bracket and we're going to mark the second and the last hole. And if you're not using these kind of connectors, you just really want to bend back the prongs and see where they fit on the connector before you mark holes. So sometimes they can be different. But this one, they're all the same, and I've done this connector a million times, and that's where it fits the best, in the second hole and the bottom. I'm going to do that for all 4 lines. Second, the bottom. And then we need to take our craft knife and we're just going to cut this little line that we just drew. And sometimes if you have a more stretchy vinyl, you can just poke your craft knife in very carefully and it'll make a mark for you. You just want to be careful not to make the slit too wide so that our connector has just enough room. So I'm only putting my craft knife blade in just a tiny bit, just so that it's the width of our prongs here. So we don't need to go very far at all. Now take your connectors and fold the prongs out. And from the front side, we're going to put the prongs into the holes that we just cut. And just make sure it's pushed all the way up against the connector. Add your bracket on the back and fold them to the center. And then we need to do the same thing for all 4 connectors. The prongs on these folding towards each other just work a little bit better at securing it than if we were to push them apart, and also less likely to rub through your material on the front side. If we were to push them back this way, the metal would be poking into our main body and would be more than likely to tear a hole. We want those little slits to be pretty snug, so you don't want to have it wiggling around. Grab our brackets. And then we want to add a piece of duct tape onto, or Gorilla Tape, or some sort of really thick tape onto the back, just to keep the lining from rubbing on those metal prongs on the back side. So flip it over, check, make sure everything looks okay, and we can't even tell that there's interfacing behind those connectors. So now we'll grab the one with our name tag. And it goes on the same way like our connectors do, where we're just going to use our bracket line everything up. Take our craft knife, and since this one doesn't get pulled on a lot, I don't really feel it's too necessary to add a piece of interfacing, because we have our bracket. Make sure it's right side up. And if you're stitching on your tag, you can just use a chalk line on the front side to mark where your tag should sit. Make sure everything's straight. And fold our prong. And our exterior and our lining prep work is done. If we are going to do a hidden D-ring connector, we're going to use the same lines like we drew before and pick the size connector or D-ring that you'd like to use, or rectangle ring. We are going to do a 3/4 inch rectangle ring. I want to line my D-ring connector up right along with the flat edge along the line and our center line on the center line that we drew earlier. So we're just going to line everything up and draw a line up the sides and across the top. So now you should have like a little teepee. So we're going to do the same thing for this side. Line everything up, over, and down. And then take our craft knife and cut along the line that we just drew. So just a little short edge along the top and down the side. Make sure it went through all the way the corners. And you should have a little lip now that sticks out. So like this little tab. We're going to take the piece that we cut at the beginning and draw a line down the center. Just like, put double-sided tape down each side. And fold everything to the middle. So we should have a little tab like this, and we'll need to top stitch down both edges of that. Okay, we want to stick our tab in the hole that we created about halfway and then flip it up so the wrong side or with that seam is facing towards us. We need to flip it over and we want to stitch right here just along the top edge of that line that we drew, not going past the 2 points or the sides of our strap. So I go a couple stitches forward and then a couple stitches back. Take your rectangle ring, slide it on to our tab, and then take the remaining tab and push it back through the hole, or push it through the hole with the other side. So it should be like a little loop now. So both pieces now come through the back, and we have our rectangle ring on the front. We need to flip it over, and I want you to push our little tails backwards to expose this little tab. So do you see this little tab here? Grab that with our 2 tails, and we need to tuck this back behind it. And we want to stitch our tails and that tab together as close to the line as possible. So everything's folded back away, and I'm going to stitch as close to that line on the tab as possible through our 2 tails. So stitched right through our little tab. Flip it over, get out our D-ring connector template again, line up the hole for our rivet with the size that we have. So it's going to go 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch. Line that up flat with the top and make a mark in the center. And then we can use that to install our rivet. So now we have our rivet to secure everything, and you just would repeat that for the other 3 connectors, and there you have your strap connector with the hidden connector. Working with our straps now, we'll want to flip those over wrong sides up and draw a line down the center of the entire length of the handles. The same thing for both sides. Now we need to add double-sided tape about 1/8 inch onto each side of the line that we just drew. You can also use clips for this part, but I've just found that using double-sided tape really helps make nice straps that don't slide. So if your machine is giving you trouble with double-sided tape, keep an alcohol wipe handy and wipe your needle. I just really think it's worth it to kind of try and figure out a way to get this tape to be able to hold everything together. And there's so many different brands of double-sided tape. So just check a few. If you don't have good luck with one, try another. We're going to peel off the backing and we're going to fold the raw edge towards that middle line. Now the first inch, I want to be super close to that line because that's going to give us the actual width of our strap where we need to put in a strap end. And then right past an inch, I'm going to go back 1/16 on the other side of the line. So I just want to see a slight gap of the backing fabric on the side of the line that I'm folding to. So it doesn't have to be exact, just slightly be able to see the line and a little bit of that backing. Because when we fold our strap together in a minute, it's going to fold a lot nicer. Now when we come back to this end, we're going to fold right up to that line. I work better going from right to left, so I just flip my strap around and do the same for this side. So that first inch is going to be touching each other. Then just slight gap between the two together. And just working my way all the way down the straps. This vinyl is a marine vinyl. It doesn't have a lot of stretch to it. If you're working with something that has a lot of stretch and you're making a bag that you know is going to be carried a lot, maybe a larger purse, you can add a piece of ribbon or a piece of interfacing down the center just to give it a little bit of extra strength so that it doesn't stretch while someone's carrying it and the rivets pop out or just break over time. You don't want a saggy strap. So just keep that in mind with the materials that you're working with. This one's pretty sturdy, doesn't have much of a stretch, so I'm not too worried about having to put anything down the middle. So again, we're just pushing towards that middle line and then meeting that line exactly at the end. Flip it over. And the same for this side. And the strap length that I gave you in the pattern is just a guideline. If you have a smaller body frame and you need your handles a little bit shorter, you can definitely take length off, or if you like your bag to hang lower, you can certainly add more length to these. This was just the best guideline for a starting point and the average handles for this bag. And then meet at the end. Grab our double-sided tape again, and just over 1/8 of an inch from one folded edge, we're going to add a row of double-sided tape. And we don't want it to be right up on the edge because we're going to be stitching there. We're going to be top stitching these closed, and we don't want to stitch through the tape if we can avoid it. So just about 1/8 inch, so just imagine if you're top stitching, we want it to go right under where our top stitching is, and tape all the way down. So this part is where it makes it a lot easier that there's a gap here. It gives it a little bit more room to fold together and not crease on itself. So peel back our double-sided tape, and again, for some reason I like to work from right to left. And I'm going to pinch my strap together, lining up these edges, the folded edge and the raw edge there. And then pinching as I go. I'm kind of using my left hand to guide everything down, fold it, and then I can pinch everything together. So I'm just using this hand to kind of guide, pinch and press, pinch and press. That way it's not twisting and turning. If you're twisting like this and you're turning like that and you're pulling tight, then your straps are going to twist a little bit. So we just kind of want to guide everything as normal as we can to keep it from twisting. And once we reach the end, everything should line up. And we're going to repeat on the second strap. So So again, just folding to the end, using my other hand to kind of guide everything through and pinch these straps together, lining up the edge. Now we want to trim up anything that's uneven at the ends, just so we have even ends. Also want to make sure that our straps are the same length. Sometimes our cutting skills can be a little off. So we just want to make sure everything lines up. So one strap's not longer than the other. So now we need to top stitch our straps down each side at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Turn our strap around to the other side and top stitch down that side at an 1/8 inch. Now we need to top stitch our next strap. So now we want to take our straps and our strap ends and slide them on. If you have a good side and a back side, which you shouldn't, they should be pretty close, but if you have a preference, just make sure we pick that right side. And then these tiny little screws screw right in the back. Just make sure your strap's pushed all the way in and screw them in. We want to make sure that when we do the other end of our strap that it's not twisted, and we do the same side, so screw side up. Okay, and now we'll do the other strap. These little screws can be so tricky. They're just so tiny. Flip our strap around, make sure it's going the right way. And hope they don't hit the floor. Spoke too soon. At least I found it quick. They need to make a rivet strap end. That would be brilliant. Because these screws are so hard. Okay, now our strap ends are on, and we can put our straps aside for now. Next, we'll want to work with our zipper lining panel We have our zipper overlay, our zipper tape, our zipper hardware, and our 2 zipper pocket linings. Take your overlay and add double-sided tape on the back, about 1/8 inch from all of the sides. We don't want it too close to the sides so that we don't stitch through it. So just double-sided tape on the top and bottom. I'm just going to peel this one up a little bit so it's not so close to the edge. I'm going to peel the top and bottom double-sided tape backing off, and we want to line up our overlay along the line that we drew the first step. So the top of our overlay is going to be right up on that line and center it on our panel. Now we need to stitch around the entire perimeter of our overlay. And start about 1 stitch in on this bottom right hand corner. So I'm going to drop my needle in at 1/8 inch from the edge and start stitching around using my foot as the 1/8 inch guide. Once I get to the corner, I'm going to stop and pivot. And you can hand walk it if you're unsure where to pivot, and then turn. So if you're going to come up short or long, you can kind of guide your fabric so that it lands in the perfect hole. So I'm going to hand walk it in to that last corner, drop it down, and then pivot. Hand walk it and pivot. As we get back closer to this end, before I pivot, I'm going to stop, lift up my backing, and tug on the string that we left behind, and I'm pulling this thread through to the back. That way it'll be on the back side when I'm ready to tie it off. So I'm going to turn and pivot, come down this last side, walk it to the end, and then I have 1 stitch length left to make sure I get it in that into the right hole where we started. So I'm going to walk it in to land in that same exact hole and pull my thread tails out long. Trim those off and flip it over and pull the string that we just left through, and it'll give you a little loop. So now you'll have 4 strands on the back. Flip it over just to make sure that we didn't accidentally pull out a stitch from here. And then we can tie these off on the back. And I usually only do like 2 or 3 ties just to make a little knot. And then you can trim these back. Grab a pair of scissors, and I kind of like to fold my lining in half, and I'm just going to snip right in between that window that we have for our overlay, making sure you don't cut your overlay, of course. We just want to cut the lining. And I'm going to go all the way down to the end of our overlay and just about an 1/8 inch under. Do the same for this side, flip it around, cut down the middle to about an 1/8 inch behind our overlay. So we're going to flip it to the back side, and I like to kind of angle my scissors in, and you can snip up to meet the about an 1/8 inch where we were behind. You should hit that tape, and we're just going to trim off the fabric meeting up with the tape line so that everything behind that zipper window will be gone. But take your time, don't cut your overlay. They're a pain to cut out. And then we're just trimming this overlay, backing off. Doesn't have to be pretty. No one's ever going to see it. And so just make sure everything is cleaned out in that window. So now you can see through behind it. Everything's open. Take one of your zipper linings, right side up. Lay our zipper tape on the top, right side up, and stitch that along the top edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Flip your zipper tape back and fold that crease that back down towards like its seam allowance. So you want to kind of push that back, wrong sides together. So your zipper tape should be right side up now. Take your remaining lining piece, and we're going to, let's see, is our right side? Nope. Line up the edges of our pocket lining and then meet the top with the top of our zipper tape. And then we want to stitch that down at an 1/8 inch seam allowance as well. So now you should have your zipper lining. Your zipper should be facing you, and then your lining pieces should be facing each other. Grab your zipper pull, and we want our zipper to be closed on the left side, so when you open it, it'll be on the right side. So we're going to start on the right side, open up your zipper teeth slightly, slide on one side of your zipper teeth, and then pull the other side in. Adjust the end teeth just slightly and push it on. You need to add double-sided tape right on top of that stitching at the 1/8 inch line. Do it on the top and the bottom of that zipper tape. With your zipper pull, if you have a dangly zipper pull, it can kind of get in the way a little bit here, but it'll be okay. So we're going to peel back our double-sided tape, take your lining piece, and you can see the stitching on the back of the window here. We want to center our pocket the best we can on this overlay. So we just want it to be as even as we can. Carefully place your overlay onto your zipper, lining up the teeth right in the middle of this window. And again, we only have the tape removed from the top, so the bottom's not going to stick. So you can adjust a little bit and then press the top of your zipper overlay down. Pull your zipper, if it's dangly, out of the overlay, and then make sure, so if you were to push this down, make sure everything looks good on the top. If everything looks good, pull back your lining, and we're going to peel off the zipper tape backing, or peel off the double-sided tape backing. And then carefully flip it down and let it fall into place onto the zipper. Double check to make sure nothing got folded under here, and adjust if anything's off. So if it's a little bit crooked, it's just double-sided tape. Just unadhere it from the back and lay it back down where it should go. So now your zipper should be centered in your overlay hole. We need to flip up our lining from the back. So we want, normally it would be down, flip it up and out of the way. And we want to stitch from the bottom right edge all the way across and stop on this end. We're going to leave our thread tails long and we're going to tie it off on the back. Pull your thread tails long, flip it over, pull into the back, and tie it off. Same for this side. Pull it through. Tie it off on the back. Flip our pocket lining back down to its normal position. Flip it over, and we want to start in that same hole that we stopped in. Stitch up the side, across the top, and back down to where we first started stitching. My thread tails long. Put my needle right in that same hole and stitch up the side. Across the top. and back down the side. Walking it in to start to meet that first stitch hole where we started. Thread tails long. Pull everything to the back. And you don't want to pull so tight that you break your thread, but we do want these to be nice tight knots on the back so that it doesn't pull out your stitching. And snip our thread tails off. So our zipper pocket lining pieces are a little bit off just because of the way the zipper tape was. So we just want to trim these even with each other. Flip it back right side up and peel back the front panel to expose your zipper tape and your zipper pocket lining. And we want to stitch down the side, the bottom, across the bottom of our zipper pocket and up the other side with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I just like to back stitch right over the zipper just to give it a little bit extra security and stitches. So we're going to pivot, stitch across the bottom. Then when you get to the other side, we just want to peel back that front panel so that we don't stitch in the way. Flip it over and trim off any remaining zipper that's sticking out past our lining. So now our zipper side lining is complete and we can put that aside, and we want to grab our slip pocket side and our slip pockets. Okay, we have our slip pocket side, our slip pocket, and our slip pocket accent. Take your slip pocket and we want the short side on the top and the long sides on the side. I want you to fold it in half, matching the short sides together. And we can add a couple clips. Fold this panel down and crease the bottom well. So we want that seam to be creased pretty nice. Take it over to our machine and stitch both sides down at 1/4 of an inch, and those are going to be your short sides, which were your long sides, leaving the top open. Same for this side. Okay, so we have our top is open, and then we have our sides and the folded edge at the bottom. The folded edge at the bottom, we want to trim a little angle off. So we're just going to take some of the bulk off so when we turn this corner, it doesn't have all that fabric. So just a snip, going as close to we can as the stitching to about 1 inch past. So again, the fold is at the bottom, right up to that stitching, and we're just going to trim a little triangle off. From the top part that's open, we want to turn, and I like to put my thumb in, my finger on where we just trimmed, poke that seam through first, go to the other corner, finger in, thumb on, and push through. It just really helps poke those corners out before we flip this pocket out. If you're using a cotton fabric for this, you can take it to your iron and you can press this really well. So we want this pocket to be nice, flat, and even. And then we want to baste the open hole closed. So basting is just a longer stitch length if necessary, and just about 1/8 of an inch. Not really pretty, it's not going to be seen. Just a quick stitch to hold in place. Grab your lining accent, and we want it horizontally on our table. Grab a marking pen and a ruler, and 1/2 inch from the top, mark a line. So this is going to be the 1/2 inch side. So we have a 1/2 inch and then our larger side. I know on the camera it kind of all looks the same, but this is our 1/2 inch side. Let's add double-sided tape on each side of that line, about 1/8 inch from the line. And peel off the double-sided tape on the 1/2 inch side, so our top. So we're going to pretend, because mine is non-directional, so if this is your directional print, this is going to be the front, and this will be the back or the inside of your slip pocket, so things would go into your pocket this way. Flip it over so that the basting stitches is towards you, the seam is at the bottom. Center it on our accent piece. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of centered. And line up that raw edge with the line that we drew. So basted edge here, or folded edge down there. Peel off this side, the double-sided tape, and fold it back towards the back side of this pocket. And press that down well. So we're going to flip it over, and then this is the front side. We're going to top stitch starting at the edge of our fabric. So there's a little bit extra here. We're going to leave that for now. Start right, you can kind of push it down and see the crease. So we're going to start right here, stitch across the top, and then another row of stitching along that bottom edge of the accent. If you want to add something cute, we can add a little sew-in label right here on the edge underneath our accent. So we did that top stitching, and now we want to do the bottom edge. So starting at the same spot where we did on the top. And now we can trim off any excess zipper accent that sticks out past the fabric. Just don't cut your fabric. So we have our slip pocket. We have our centers clipped, so you can see our centers on our main body panel. We can fold our slip pocket in half, line it right up to our ruler mark, and place it lining the top edge of our accent panel along the line that we drew at the beginning. So you should have it just like this. I like to take a couple pieces of masking tape, and you can tape down the sides and the bottom to keep it in place when you take it over to your machine. So tape that down, slide my ruler out, and we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to start stitching at the top of our top row stitching, down the side, across the bottom, and back up the top. Just as you get around, you can remove that piece of tape. It's holding everything in place. And trim off your thread tails. Okay, so we want to divide the pocket. Get our ruler and our chalk pencil and line up our ruler with our center seams again. So our triangles in our center, and just mark with your chalk pencil down the center line. And I do want to add a little pin pocket, and it's about an inch. So maybe I'll do it on this side, right up. We'll go, since we have the tag on that side, we'll do the pin pocket on this side. So I'm going to go an inch in from my stitching and just draw a line. So now I'm going to stitch down these two lines and backstitch well at the beginning and end. This Celestia thread from SiahSwag blends in so well you can't even see it. So now we'll stitch down our pin pocket. So there we have our slip pocket, and our pin should fit in there perfect. So now you don't have to dig for it. I like it a little bit tighter so that you don't have a lot of room for it to move around, and you can just slip it right in the top. Okay, grab both of your lining panels. We have our slip pocket side and we have our zipper pocket side, and lay them right sides together. And we want to stitch across this bottom edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We want to do what's called butterflying open the seams, which is just pushing the seams open. So kind of like spreading them like wings. Just open them up and press that seam open all the way across the bottom. So we want to flip this over, keeping that butterflied seam open, and we want to top stitch down each side of our center seam so that we can hold that butterfly open. So you may have to roll this lining a little bit to the center so that you have enough room under your machine, and then top stitch down each side. going to go back down the other side. Fold both lining panels back towards each other so they're right sides together. Grab a couple clips and line up our side edges. We want to stitch down our side edges at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for the top inch. And then once we get to this inch line, we're going to switch over to a 1/2 inch. So we're just going to start like normal. 3/8, back stitch. Okay, so we're at that 1 inch mark now. I'm going to slide my fabric over to where it meets my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I have my seam guide on my machine and I'm just turned it slightly. So this is 3/8, this is 1/2, and then I'm going to stitch a couple more stitches and it's going to bring that in just a hair. So now we are stitching at a 1/2 inch. So it's just a slight move over of the fabric right at that inch mark. So nothing crazy, just 3/8 and then comes right over. So we can do the same for the other side so you can see that again, okay? 3/8, back stitch, right at the inch mark, okay, where our line is. Move your fabric over so that right here is lined up with my 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? We're going to take a couple stitches and the fabric is going to even itself out with that 1/2 inch seam allowance now. Back stitch when we get to the bottom. And of course it's yellow right where we graded in here, but let's see, where's the pen? Okay, so this is 3/8. This is a 1/2 inch right here. It just a slight angle at that inch mark. It's nothing crazy. 3/8, 1/2 inch. It's just a slight angle. Okay? Now let's box our corners. Take your side seam and open this up just a little bit, okay? Fold this back. We have our corners that we cut out. So I'm sticking my finger into this opening and pushing this seam back, okay? So it's flatter. You can see our seam on the inside. Match up those seams even with each other. We want them to be even with each other at least a 1/2 inch inside our opening. And why is that? Because we're going to stitch our opening closed at a 1/2 inch. So if it's only even at the tip, at the opening, and you have your fabric like this, you know, all mangled, and oh, well, it lines up here, right, but we're stitching back here, so it's not going to meet up perfect in the back. So a 1/2 inch in, press these seams together and line up these raw edges. That will really help your boxed corners come together nicely. So my finger is pressed back here at the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to, or more like 1 inch, I'm going to kind of crease over to the sides, and that's where I'm going to put a clip on my sides over here. And then I'm going to put one in the middle as far as I can in on my seam. I like to stitch from the top up, I don't really know why, but these clips are holding, let's see if you can see, okay. So these clips are holding this flat edge. I don't want to mangle my bag too much. Gently, so this is how it's clipped. Okay, so you can see, clip just like that. We're gonna go right into the machine. Remove that first clip so I don't smush it, and stitch at a 1/2 inch. Okay, so we're stitched at a 1/2 inch. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Open up this side seam, press it really well, at least a couple inches up. In your opening, you can see your side seam. You can see right here is my side seam where everything meets up. Line that up with the bottom side seam, or the bottom seam. We're about 1 inch down. Add a clip, and add a clip over here. Your middles still should be lined up, your flat edges, okay? So now we have, gently slide your bag into the machine. We don't want to mangle it under the machine. The more you twist, turn, maneuver it, and get all those corners all wacky, it's not going to be straight when you stitch. Okay? Stitching at a 1/2 inch. So now we'll trim off the excess to about 1/8 of an inch in these thread tails, okay? Do the same for this side. Trim that excess off so that it'll fit nice in our inside our exterior. So there's that. We have our lining, and it should be wrong sides out. You should have the pretty side in the inside, just like your lining. Okay? Let's trim the seam allowances down on the side. So because we butterflied open this at the bottom, let's see if I can move my hand out of the way. Okay? I just snip in about 1/4 of an inch, and then I come up the side. We want to leave that top inch, so I just scoop out. From this side, about 1/4 of an inch in, up the side, and scoop out. So your side seam should look like this now. So this is where we butterflied the bottom, and then I trimmed everything short. This should lay flat and not cause you any issues the bulk inside the bag. And then our bottom should be flat from where we top stitched everything down nicely. Okay, so we need to, since we're doing a drop-in lining, that's why we made this line across the top. This is essentially going to be our seam allowance, okay? Grab your double-sided tape, and we're going to run it along the very tippy top edge, as close as you can get to the top. Let's see if we can put this up here, okay? All right, so we're along the top. When I get to the sides, I want to open up this side seam, push it flat. So we have it flat, wrap the tape around that to keep it open, and then continue around the other side. Okay, so our side seam is open flat. And just add this double-sided tape right along the top edge, the very tippy top of this lining panel. Get to the side, trim it so it's a little bit easier to hold, and then open up the side seam and use this tape to hold it open. Okay, we're going to peel off this tape backing. Fold this, let me get this side too. Okay. Fold this side seam down even with the crease. And we're folding down to that line that we drew. Peeling off the tape as we go around. Just carefully keep folding. And pinching all the way around the bag. So we want to keep that tape just at the top edge so that when we top stitch our bag, we don't top stitch through the double-sided tape. Side seams, fold those to match, and keep going around the bag. So we have our lining now with the top edge folded over to meet that top line. Grab your exteriors, right sides together, line up our bottom seams, add a couple clips. Just like we did for the lining, we want to stitch across the bottom, but we're going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance for the exterior. Back stitch, and 3/8 across the bottom. Butterfly open the bottom seam. Pressing it apart. Because this is vinyl, it's not going to want to stay open as easy, okay? So I have it open with my fingers and I'm going to put it underneath my foot. and we're going to top stitch down each side. So as long as I have it started and held open, I'm going to back stitch. And then now I can kind of lift up the main body and stick my hand underneath to hold open the bottom seam as we top stitch. Stitch across the bottom, and we want to come back down the other side. So, pushing our flap, back stitch, and then use your hand underneath to guide it if you need to. Trim our throw tails, fold our exterior right sides together. It's a little bit floppy and a little bit weird because of the connectors seem a little bit heavy, but I promise it'll work. Clip our sides together, okay? Both sides, lining up the bottom, lining up the edge. If your boxed corners are not lining up, your seam allowance on the bottom was either off and not as accurate, or you're cutting whenever you cut out, because they should be pretty accurate at this point, and that'll help also keep your corners nice and neat, okay? So we're going to stitch this entire side at 3/8 inch seam allowance, and we don't need to braid or anything because this is the exterior, so we're not making the lining snug. We're just doing our normal 3/8 seam allowance. Other side, 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim your threads, and let's box the bottoms. Same thing we did for the lining. Butterfly open the side seams to about 1 inch in. Line up the seams and bring your sides together. So your raw edges are lining up about 1 inch down on each side. Add a clip. Add a clip, okay? Right side up, Yeah, so your bottom is flat onto the machine. And slide it in gently without maneuvering too much because we want these sides to stay lined up. 3/8 inch seam allowance, stitch your boxed corners closed. Let's do it again on this side. Side seams butterflied open, about 1 inch in. Line up the seams, pop out your corners. Seams are lined up, about 1 inch back. Add a clip, and let's stitch. Same thing, you need to trim the seam allowance on the bottom nice and tight. Keeps the linings and the exterior, when they nest together, from hitting each other and creating lumps. Okay, so we have that. Let's do the same thing that we did for the side seams. 1/4 inch in, all the way up the side to the 1 inch line and scoop out. The side, 1/4 inch in, all the way up the side and scoop out. Just like we did for the lining, we need to add double-sided tape around the perimeter at the top, okay? So open up this side seam, adding tape to keep it open, coming all the way around that top edge. Butterfly open this side seam. Meet back where we started. Pull the tape backing off and fold this down to meet the line, lining up those seams. Folding all the way around, using this hand to kind of guide as we go along. Got the side seam here, fold it down. Peeling off the tape as we go, meeting that line. So we have our exterior just like this, okay? So same thing we had for our lining. domestic friends, if you have a domestic machine or a tabletop machine or anything where you can't prop it up or kind of make a cylinder arm, try this way as well, okay? We're going to turn our lining right sides out. And it doesn't even have to be poked out all the way, okay? You can leave it just like, well, let's poke it all the way out. And I'll show you why. Take your exterior and stick it inside of your lining. And it's going to be snug, but it's okay. We don't have interfacing on our exterior, so it's going to be okay. Line up your center points and clip into place, okay? So line up your side seams. First. Line up your center points. And clip this around. You may have to pull a little bit tight because your lining is going to be a little bit more snug than your exterior. Okay? So we're clipping this together, right? You have everything clipped together. You can take it to your machine and you can top stitch just like this, okay? With your exterior right side up so you can see your exterior. As you go around, then you can move everything. You also may want to take your key fob pliers and pinch these seams together. They're not bulky, but it just helps spread everything out so that it distributes any little bit of bulk as you go around. For everyone else, you can also flip the exterior, which is nice. No interfacing on it at all, so we don't have to worry about any exterior wrinkles or anything like that. Push our corners out. We want to put our lining inside our exterior with our zipper pocket and overlay towards the back. So side without our nameplate. Stick everything in. And we want to clip everything together. Find our side seams, clip together, find our side seams, and clip together. Then you may have to pull from the sides to get everything nice and tight. We can just add clips as we go around. Okay, so you could do that. Or if you're okay with using double-sided tape, right at the, I'd say about halfway on our folded over edge, just above the bottom, more towards the bottom than the top, just so we don't top stitch into it. We can run this around the lining edge. Peel off the backing, line up the sides, and then I'm actually going to snip this double-sided tape right here on this seam so that I can open up and line up this seam first too. Side seams are pretty important. You want those to look nice. So line up those side seams too. And then just work your way around and line up the centers. And then the same for this side. Find the end of our double-sided tape, peel that back, and just line up our edges. Add a couple clips in place. Just in case. Okay, so my camera stopped recording and I stopped stitching around the top of the bag, but we made it all the way around the top of the bag, and then I used a hand sewing needle to thread the threads through the top side seam and tie those off, and now we just need to do our handles. So we're going to take our straps that we have from earlier and a strap rivet guide. If you don't have a strap rivet guide, then you're just going to want to take your strap and you're going to do screw side towards you and feed it up through your connector. Bring it through about 1 inch and fold back towards you. Then take your punch and you're going to punch through both layers or make a mark that's even with each other. Bring this strap around and do the same for this side, and then repeat for all 4. I like to use my strap rivet guide, and it's just a handy tool that we created when I first started sewing to mark handles and straps, swivel snaps and straps exactly, so that you don't have to measure every time or guess, and then your handles and straps come out even every time. So I'm just using my strap rivet guide and marking the holes B and C, which is for our straps, or for handles rather, instead of like a crossbody strap or something is what we would use A for. So I'm going to mark on all 4 ends. And the strap guide has guidelines, so you could use it for 1 inch handles or straps, 3/4, 1/2 inch. Okay, there. Okay, this side. So I'm just lining it up with my strap end, making a little mark in the middle of the hole. And then we can use our punch to punch out on those lines. And it just takes all the guesswork out, so you don't have to try and guess every time if it's even, if it's right, if it's in the same spot. It's in the same spot every time. You don't have to think about it, and that's that. So there's 1. 2. And last one. And I like to use the 9x9 rivets just because I feel like that length in the stud post is pretty universal, and I haven't had any problems with thick straps. So again, I'm going wrong side, which has our screws, up through the connector first, and folding that around our connector. And I'm going to put the long side with the post in from the side that will, like the longer part of the strap. So the furthest hole from the strap end, because that's the side we're going to see. Poke it through the second hole, and then add our cap on the back. Bring this edge of the handle through this strap connector, and depending on your strap connectors, you may have to add them after, just because they can be a little tricky. These are right at the edge of not being able to fit through here, but they do. So fold that up. The post side goes in first, and then in through the second hole, and put your cap on. I'm going to go ahead and set these before I do my other strap, so that I don't forget what I set and what I didn't. And the good thing about the strap rivet guide too is we have it down to a science so that you don't smush your connectors or your hardware here whenever you put your rivets on your press. So depending on your press, you can get pretty close sometimes. So I've pinched a lot of bags before having my strap connector by hitting this hardware. and that doesn't happen anymore. So we want to do the same thing with this strap. Put it through. Post side goes in first. Back through the back side. Add our cap. Press that down. Last one, and then we are done. Push that up through. Post in first. Through the back side. Add the back cap. And then punch. And that's it. There we have it. And our fundamental tote is complete. Please let me know what you thought of this extended version video, if you like the extended tutorials or the quicker tutorials better. As always, I'll link everything that I used in the description below, along with the link to purchase this pattern. I thank you guys so much for your support. I can't wait to see your makes. Please tag us on Facebook, Instagram, all the social medias at Joleelee Creations, and you can also use the hashtag fundamental tote and we can find you there. Also, Creating with Joleelee is our group for makers on Facebook, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks.